This is Incredible Mass News for Tuesday, May 2nd. This week in activism, we hope that you can show up to some of these events. So all week long, Families for Justice as Healing is having a week of action. That's for their No New Women's Prison campaign. You can see their site for opportunities to take action. On May 2nd, that's today, at 6:30 p.m., the Acton Climate Coalition is having their Building with Clean Energy event. On May 4th at 10 a.m. is MassCare's Lobby Day to pass Medicare for all at the state level. May 16th at 1 p.m., the Massachusetts social workers are organizing a legislative briefing on the Super Act. That's the State House, room 428. And if you know of any actions happening, please let us know. We will announce them each week. You can find us, Incorruptible Mass, on any social media platform or email us at info@incorruptiblemass.org. And now on to the news. Climate. At the start of a two-day meeting in Berlin, attended by dozens of top climate envoys, Germany called for governments around the world to work on setting ambitious targets for renewable energy. Investment funds branded as green or socially responsible are being used by some of the world's largest asset managers to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in fossil fuel companies, according to a report by the Commonwealth think tank. And Brazil's battle to reclaim its largest indigenous territory from tens of thousands of illegal miners, I believe these are coal miners, has taken a deadly turn after at least 5 people were reportedly killed during 36 hours of violence in the Amazon's Yanomami territory. The bloodshed began on Saturday afternoon when masked illegal miners allegedly launched an attack on a Yanomami village. In international news, food shortages worsen in Sudan as battles continue despite a ceasefire. And in France, there are still nationwide protests going on against the government's raising of the retirement age from 62 to 64. These protests have been going on for months. But May Day had a big one. Unions had called for a big turnout on Monday, and hundreds of thousands of people attended about 300 demonstrations across France. In national news, the U.S. debt ceiling could cause the national government to officially default on debt as soon as June 1st. House Republicans have narrowly approved a bill to raise the debt limit in exchange for a 13% cut in discretionary spending, which would, for example, block the White House's student debt relief plan, block tax credits for renewable energy projects like wind and solar, do a bunch of things that really are crazy. The Democrats rejected it, which is why we're still looking at the debt ceiling. I encourage people to watch. There was a Solidarity Now that I did on the national debt and what that is and what it means and whether there really truly is a debt ceiling. So I encourage you to watch that to learn a little bit more. The U.S. Surgeon General released an 81-page report concluding that loneliness poses a threat just as dangerous to people's health as smoking in the post-COVID era. And musician and civil rights activist Harry Belafonte has died. He was 96. I love him. Please learn more about his life and his music. He's fantastic. I have a special segment today on LGBTQ and trans issues as well as women's issues because it was not a good week. So Missouri State Rep Zooey Zephyr has been silenced for speaking out against an anti-trans law. She is no longer allowed to enter the chambers. She's an elected state rep, no longer allowed to enter the chambers or to speak on any bills, although she can still take votes. Republican lawmakers in Kansas overrode a veto by Democratic Governor Laura Kelly, and they enacted legislation that bars trans people from using bathrooms that align with their gender identity in schools, locker rooms, prisons, domestic violence shelters, and rape crisis centers. Oklahoma governor has also signed a ban on gender-affirming care for minors, things like puberty blockers. But in Massachusetts, the LGBTQ Youth Commission's just released a report that's nearly 300 pages long, and it makes recommendations to 21 agencies and officials across the state government so that Massachusetts can both stand up against these bills in other states and also provide comprehensive care for LGBTQ youth. And the Senate GOP has blocked the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. if you think that the Equal Rights Amendment passed a long time ago, I'm not surprised. This measure was introduced 100 years ago. It passed with enough states 50 years ago, but it has never been ratified because conservative opponents argue that the deadline for ratification has expired. Legal experts believe that its ratification would have helped and would help to prevent mounting attacks on LGBTQ communities and women's reproductive rights. In state news, today is the primary for the 9th and 10th Suffolk state rep districts. Because there are no Republicans running in these districts, the vote today will almost certainly determine who these state reps will be. So go out and vote. Go tell your friends who live there to run out and vote. Make sure that happens before the end of the day. Massachusetts has the 6th strongest gun laws in the nation, so we're pretty good. House lawmakers are in the early stages of a statewide listening tour on gun issues. As I mentioned last week, there really are a lot of things that we could be doing on guns that we are not. So just because we're the 6th strongest gun laws in the U.S. doesn't mean that we're anywhere near legislation in other countries. So there are still more things we could do. The state Supreme Court has reinstated criminal charges on Thursday against 2 former top officials of the Holyoke Soldiers' Home who were accused of neglecting veterans during the pandemic. Veterans who lived at the home, at least 76 residents died in the early days of COVID-19. After 3 days of deliberations that mostly occurred out of the public eye, secrecy that drew criticism from the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance, the House budget is done. House lawmakers almost unanimously approved a $56.2 billion budget. That is a little bit more than Governor Maura Healey's proposal. Please tune in to our podcast that's coming out on Friday, where we do a deep dive into the budget. You will learn things that you didn't know about a budget, I almost guarantee. So look forward to that coming out on Friday. The House whittled the more than 1,500 amendments down into 7 mega amendments. They covered everything from, education, environment, transportation, literally anything that, needs to be in the budget. A lot of those things ended up in amendments. There's also $20 million for free community colleges for people over 25. And the Senate is expected to move ahead with its budget by May 10th, we hope. And there is also some hope that a more progressive tax relief package will go along with it, rather than the tax cut for millionaires and billionaires that is currently in the House budget. Thank you so much for listening to our news from May 2nd. Be sure to tune in to our analysis of state politics later in the week. This week is budget, and it is amazing. We'll talk to you then.